Delegation isn't easy. It may sound easy, but implementing it isn't easy. And part of the reason is that there's no standard for what equals good delegation. I can't go take a test and score a 98 out of 100 on my ability to delegate. But the biggest reason that delegation isn't easy for small business is that we're not IBM and we're not a Fortune 500 company. All of the materials, all of the training that's available on how to delegate, and there effectively isn't any training for entrepreneurs, is designed for big companies. And small businesses aren't IBM. We don't have an HR director down the hall. Everything that we read is written for the Fortune 500s and not for us. How delegation is different for small business is that all the books are going to tell us things like delegate the function, not the task. Well, that's great, but if you don't have a system for delegating, not only can you not delegate the function, but you may not even be able to delegate the task. Here's how I think delegation is different for small to medium-sized businesses than it is for large businesses. The first is that what works in a small business probably doesn't work in a big business and vice versa. And so you have to be a little counterintuitive, that what works for small business tends to be counterintuitive and goes against a lot of the things that we read about delegation. Entrepreneurs tend to not be good delegators because they're impatient. It's an oxymoron to say a patient entrepreneur. That what makes you a great entrepreneur makes you a lousy delegator sometimes. I think that sometimes there's quality of staff issues. Different people work for small businesses than work for big businesses, and there's also a quantity of staff issue many times within a small business. There also can be the cost of delegation. And the other thing is, if you really want to delegate, what you're doing is placing a bet on yourself. I'll cover these all in detail on the next slides. If you want to be an effective delegator in a small business environment, you need to think a little counterintuitively. Everything that we read, and if we were to do it by the book, I say you're going to fail, because by the book focuses on the what you need to delegate, not the how. The trick is to learn how to delegate anything. If I can effectively learn how to delegate one little itty-bitty thing through the right process, not delegating the right work, go fetch my laundry for me. That's awfully easy to delegate, picking up my dry cleaning. However, once we get more advanced and delegate more complex tasks and functions, what we really need is a process. And we can't just push the work to someone and say, you do it. That's what delegation is. And many people do exactly that. It's back to the impatient entrepreneur. I can't just say, I'm not going to do it, you do it. That is not delegation. What we need is a system to delegate. Another reason that delegation isn't easy is what I'll call entrepreneurial impatience. That healthy sense of impatience that helps us move faster than our competition and makes us a terrific entrepreneur has a flip side. And the flip side is that we tend to do the you do it method of delegation, and that does not work. Now, the good news is if you will learn a process, you can get awfully close to you do it once you learn the proper delegation system. Delegation may not be easy for you because of quality and quantity of staff. If there's no one to delegate to or no one qualified to delegate to, it makes it awfully easy. Now, I'm not going to let you cop out. Small businesses, that's kind of just the way of life, that we don't have a bunch of people standing around waiting for us to push work to them, and oh, by the way, they're terrifically qualified. Well, we tend to hire less seasoned help. It means we need to train better, but it makes it difficult and sometimes challenging to delegate to these people. But I promise you there is a way to effectively do it if you create a delegation system. A lot of entrepreneurs fight delegation, and as a coach you sit there and ask, why are they fighting this? Why would they want to do this work? And I think it really gets down to the cost of delegating something. I think in the back of our mind, we know that if I have someone do the work for me, that costs me money. I have to pay them to do the work for me, whereas if I do it myself, I have this internal view that costs me nothing. Now, of course, that is completely wrong because it's the opportunity cost of what it costs to do something versus have someone do it for me. And it's not necessarily easy to compute what that really is sometimes. What does it really cost? If the person's sitting around doing nothing, it may cost nothing to delegate it. What's the opportunity cost? If I'm going to go to the movies, then there's not much opportunity cost other than relaxation. But if I could have closed $1 million sale during that time that I got back, well, then the opportunity cost was significant. And a lot of entrepreneurs are good entrepreneurs because they're financially conservative. They don't waste money. And that same financial conservatism tends to lead us to not want to delegate because I know it costs me money. The last reason it's hard to delegate is that you have to be willing to bet on yourself. This is related to the cost of delegation, but I think it's a finer point that is a very important one. And it goes back to, if I pay someone $1,000 to delegate something to them in lieu of doing it myself, what I am really doing is placing a bet on myself. What I am saying is, if I pay Mary $1,000 to do this task for me, I bet that I can take the time that I just bought back for myself for $1,000 from Mary. I'll bet that I can put that to better use than that $1,000 would be to me. And that gets to be a difficult equation. It's awfully difficult to measure. Sometimes our risk aversion gets in there because I know what $1,000 is. It's 10 $100 bills sitting right in front of me. What I don't know is, how hard is it going to be for Mary to do it? Is she going to bug me? Is she going to be successful in doing it? And what am I going to do with that time? But there is a straight line correlation between entrepreneurs that are willing to make big bets on themselves and entrepreneurs that are very successful. I'm sure you've heard things like Walt Disney went bankrupt 7 times, and certainly Donald Trump has been bankrupt several times as well. But these people place big bets, and when you place big bets, you win big bets. If you're risk averse and you're not willing to make that bet on yourself, what's going to happen is you're going to bottleneck yourself in your business, and you're not going to be able to A, delegate, but B, and more importantly, do the big things in your business. Every entrepreneur has upside. Never met an entrepreneur that doesn't have significant upside. But what they do have a shortage of is time. And what delegation is all about is getting that time back. But if you want to be a successful delegator, you have to have this inherent knowledge and this thought in the back of your mind. I know that if I get this time back, I can make use of it. And I can make profitable use of it more so than just delegating. Many business gurus would say that delegation, or the ability to delegate well, is what they call a soft skill. And I completely disagree. I think that that's part of the reason why people struggle so much with delegation, is it's viewed as a soft skill, this nebulous cloud that you can't seem to wrap your hands around. And it's not true. There is a process that works for delegation, and we call that 98-2 delegation. And then there's many tricks to 98-2 delegation, but there's also a process to it. And how this was developed was by literally observing entrepreneurs that were good delegators. And what we found was that good entrepreneurial delegators did not do it how the magazine articles and the books said to do it, that they had created their own process, and eventually you start to see patterns on how successful entrepreneurs had developed this process. So we formalized that and put it into this 98-2 delegation process. And what it'll do is take this soft skill called delegation and teach you how to delegate not only the tasks that you have in front of you today, but I promise it's a skill that will stay with you the remainder of your entrepreneurial life.